But I want to start out with a few basics that I normally do. Again, I don't know your level of familiarity with iCEV. I know in some of the other sessions, we've had teachers that this is their first exposure. Some of you may be seasoned at using this. For ag teachers, one of the things we're going to cover is we're going to look at some of our materials for helping with training your career development teams. And we'll hit briefly some on certifications. And then we'll try to take questions. And the reason I'm not already logged in, because some of you may be using Google Classroom, or your school has you set up with a single login through a third-party company, either Clever or ClassLink. And just one of the things that I found during this time that we're in, where we have some remote learners, is schools that are set up with a single login, like Clever or ClassLink. If the students are at home and they're using their school issue device, usually there's no problem, because that device, when they log in, will take them to that Clever or ClassLink portal that has our icon or tile that they just click on to go to iCEV. Same for you, the teacher. But what I have experienced is issues where teachers say, hey, my student says it's asking them to create an account. I thought we were set up through Clever or ClassLink. And what we tracked the problem down to is they weren't using the school issued device. It was a lot easier to get mom and dad's computer. They liked it better than what the school issued device was. Well, that didn't log them into their Clever or ClassLink portal. And so then they would go to our login page and try to log in by typing in a username or password. And it just wasn't working for them. So if you have at-home learners, or you're at home and you're not using your school issued device, if you use the links we provide on our login page, it will take you from us to Clever or to ClassLink. And then they have a way to identify your school and for you to log into that portal at your school district and be able to access iCEV through Clever or ClassLink. For Google, if your students are doing Google Classroom and they're synced and you need them logging in direct iCEV, or you need to log in and you don't remember your username or password, or they don't, once they're synced, they can just click that sign in with Google and it will log them into their iCEV account. So just always, I've kind of wanted to point that out because that was an issue that I'd run across earlier in the school year. Maybe you haven't experienced that, and I hope you don't.
Hey, Loyd, why don't we ask everybody that's on to, in the chat, just to send us if they're using Google Classroom or
yes, or Canvas or Schoology,
whatever.
Yeah, if you don't mind putting in the chat, if you're using a learning system or single sign-on piece like ClassLink or Clever, and that will kind of help us just a little bit.
Yeah, and Canvas.
Canvas, Schoology. If you're using some other, those are the two we're most familiar with, but we work with just about every learning management system that's out there. So we're getting.
Loyd, I have some schools that are using Teams, but we were told yesterday that they're working on that for Teams.
Yes, for Teams, on how it would.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways you can use it now with Teams, but it's not set up to work just like Google Classroom does.
Correct.
So some of the basic things that I always like to go over right here, iCEV Coach. If you haven't used this feature before, that's a live chat. They're really good to answer a question. If you got an issue, you find a typo in a PowerPoint, they'll get it to quality control to be corrected. Though they're not for like a 30-minute training session. If you need that, use the schedule online training. You might actually get one of us that's on here today, might pick that up, especially if you're in our territory. And we'll do a Zoom individual session. We never charge for any professional development. And then tutorials. If you'll go into tutorials, it takes you to a resource page. There's lots of resources there. Two things I like to drill down on: you can find guides There are guides for Canvas, Schoology, and Google Classroom that are really good. And then if you choose tutorials, there's a good tutorial on every feature that I'm going to hit on, and maybe some that I don't get to today as far as features for the program. For those of you that are using Clever or ClassLink, your dashboard will be loaded for you, and you will see, yours will say my Clever courses or my ClassLink courses. And you would be able to go into the course playlist and add additional materials. And you would have a second session created that just says my courses. You will not have students rostered to those courses that you set up individually. I will talk about how you could add courses for your students that do have accounts through ClassLink or Clever rostering. And I've got my dashboard already set up. I will show you a little bit later on how to add a course when I get into the CDE and the certification pieces. I'll show you how to add. So we will come back to that. For Clever and ClassLink, it's going to look very, very similar, but there are a few things that are different if you are set up through those two. If you're using Canvas or Schoology or Blackboard, and we are an app or an external tool for you, then your students will not necessarily come to iCEV. You will embed those assignments in Canvas, Schoology, whatever, and they will stay strictly in Canvas or Schoology. Now, there is a way to share the links into Canvas and the students then go log into iCEV, and I'll mention that as we get into the lesson a little bit. So things do look a little bit different depending on the learning management system or the single sign-on piece. One of the things that goes away with ClassLink or Clever is the live link here by clicking the name of the course. You will always have to come over here to the view button to get into the course if you're ClassLink or Clever. And I need to clean this up. So I'm looking at my third period Ag Power Systems. Of course, I'm here in Texas, so I have the Texas material. You'll have a tab where this says TEKS, that's our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that may just say state standards or standards alignment. It will depend on your state how that's labeled. I'm going to open that. This one is a huge document. It's about 90 pages in this particular one, so it may take just a second for this PDF to load. No matter what state you're in, you will have a scope and sequence. And for some of you in your state, there will be some state-specific playlist that only your state has for your courses. You will also see the courses that we built here in Texas, because Texas probably has more ag course offerings than just about any other state.
Loyd, we have an issue. Somebody, Donna McGill, says that she cannot see anything on the screen.
Okay.
I'm seeing what you're doing.
Again.
I'm seeing what you're doing.
Okay, let me try screen.
She said no, that icon.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Are you seeing this screen right now?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody else
You
should
must be talking about the icon for TEKS.
Okay. So,
Okay, she's in Schoology,
she's
so it
using
says all
Yeah.
I see is a select a resource.
okay. So in Schoology or
Mhm.
Canvas, you can see that it's in your choices. When you go in that picker page, over to the right-hand side, when you open a course, you'll see standards alignment just in blue and underlined. And when you click that, it will take you to this document. Same thing when you open a lesson and a component, you'll see the lesson plan over to the right-hand side in our picker page. So it does, like I say, it organizes a little bit different. But Donna, I still suggest that you go to your manual iCEV account before you go into Schoology or Canvas. For those teachers doing that, because in Schoology or Canvas, you go through the steps to create that assignment, and then you can actually see the video once you've got it saved as an assignment. I want to see the video or PowerPoint before I pick it. I want to see all those other materials in one place. So I tell teachers two things. One, I would print out. I would print out this scope and sequence, because that's going to help me with lesson titles that I'm looking for. And then I would go into my manual account, look at that lesson, look at the PowerPoint, the video, look at the printables, look at the interactive pieces that I want to use with that PowerPoint or video. And then I'm going into Canvas or Schoology and I'm building out that module. That's just a suggestion, because it is easier to look at it in your iCEV account than it is looking at it on the picker page in Schoology or Canvas. Okay, so I just like to point out we've got a scope and sequence. I want to point out with the scope and sequence, with the lesson plan, you are not locked into that. Now it does open it in a new tab, so I'm going to close this tab to get back to my course page. Special POPs, that's a 45-page document. I'm not going to open it. We hired a specialist, and this was published a little over a year ago. She hits mostly 504 and SPED, but she hits a little bit on GT and ESL. She has several documents at the end of this that she's developed for in-person use to help with your students with modifications. Some really good stuff. The reason I like to show the scope and sequence is we have an order we think's best, but we don't know that's the way you want to teach it. So we give you this this course. Now, if you're Canvas and Schoology, again, you're going to be able to just pick and choose when you build those modules, so you really don't have to go through the customization piece. But if you're using us direct, your students are going direct to iCEV, you may want to use this customization piece. So when I click customize this course, here are the lessons in order, selected lessons. Now, I may have rearranged these yesterday, so they may not be in the exact order because I did do some customization on here, but you can see you've got up, down arrows. And if there's something you want to teach first, like I want to teach principles of combustion right here, I move it up in the order. I can come over here in the available lessons and I can search for any lesson in ag. Now, for those of you in Canvas and Schoology, when you go to that picker page, you pick like ag, but you see business, marketing, FCS, all the other sites your school has purchased. If you want to go into the business and look for a lesson in business and put that in Canvas or Schoology, you have access to do that. For our manual people, you only have access to the subscription the school has purchased for you. You can type in a keyword. You can start here alphabetically, which it starts with the judging classes and then goes to lessons that start with A, B, C, D, and it's page after page. I don't really recommend alphabetical. If you type in a keyword, make sure you clear results between every search, because it will start searching within the first search if you don't clear. I like to just come here and click this browse by subject, because it opens up a box that shows me all of our ag lessons by category or topic. And so you can see animal systems, you see all the judging material here in the middle. I'm going to come back to the judging material later when we get to CDE, leadership materials. Lab challenges, we've added a couple of those. I think those are mostly in plant science and soil science right now that we've developed. Pretty cool. Those have been put in some of the courses, but you still might want to add those to particular courses. Since this is an ag mech, I'm coming down here to power systems. And for those of you that are old enough to remember the Dr. Harold videos, he was the Sam Houston State ag mech guru for many, many years here in Texas. We've replaced a lot of those videos in our courses, but we still have them available because a lot of our teachers prefer those. And you're looking for the keyword legacy. So I'm going to click that. And I added a couple of these yesterday, like the Lincoln field trip, the hydraulic troubleshooting. So today, and you could preview, which would show the PowerPoint or video and gives you a paragraph describing what's in that lesson, but it doesn't show all the ancillary materials. For the sake of time, I'm not going to open the preview. I'm going to say, yes, this is what I want. I'm going to add it. It dropped it at the very bottom. And then I can either grab or click, and I can move it up where I would like it. There's a finished at the bottom and a finished at the top. Make sure you click finish because that's saved. That's our save button. So now I have customized this third period. Let's say I've got a 7th period that's the same. So I want to go in, hit my drop down right here by the view button, and hit copy course. And then I'm going to have to get over here kind of at the end, backspace off copy 3rd period, put on 7th, hit finished. And now my 7th period that I've added here is an exact duplicate of my 3rd period. With ClassLink and Canvas, you don't see that copy course, but there is in the course itself under settings a way for you to, once you customize it, to copy those customizations over to the other class periods that are the same. I don't have that feature on mine because I'm not set up with Clever. I'll show you that when we get into the course here in just a moment, kind of where it will be located. So that's one of the things also that's a little bit different with the Clever or ClassLink. Again, of course, with Canvas or Schoology, you don't have to customize because you're picking and choosing what components you're putting in that module that you build for that particular unit you're covering. Okay, so we're just going to go in here back to the course. So I customized it, and you can see here's my hydraulic pipe bending that I added. And if you go in anytime during the year and you make changes, it's going to change it on the student view. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I forgot, I can't add this till next year. No, that's not the case. So we're going to look at a lesson. I'm going to hit this second lesson first. It's a PowerPoint, and then we'll go back and we'll look at a video lesson. Now, one of the things that I want to kind of tell you with with Canvas, Schoology, or even Google, you're sharing one component at a time. So you would share the PowerPoint or video. Then you would go back and you would find that first ancillary piece you want to share, and you would share it. Then you would go back and find the second piece and the third piece. If you have students coming direct to iCEV, they can see their view when they log in pretty much mirrors your view. I'll talk about the things that are different. But they'll see the PowerPoint just like you see it, no matter what version you're using. Now, one thing that's different, Canvas, Schoology, if you have them log in direct, they see this drop down. And you can see we have some career interviews. We have a few lessons that are Microsoft pieces, mostly in business, but if you're teaching professional communications, you may see that in those classes where it's a hybrid we'll get to a certain slide and it says, now go up there to the select playlist and find this video clip and watch the video clip. There are a couple of the lessons on the horse judging how-to that we redid a couple of years ago that are hybrid. I think they're kind of reverse. If my memory serves you right, you get to the end of the video and it tells you to go up and now look at the PowerPoint. Google Classroom people, this is the one thing that's different for y'all. When I share this PowerPoint, they don't get the drop down. So if I want them to view something like one of these career interviews, I have to choose that as the teacher, and then I have to use my share button right here. So when I share, it's going to take you in here. It's got the title put in. Now I apologize. I only have one course set up in my Google Classroom. I have one student, my wife, and she's not a very good student. I can't get her to do her assignments. But you can see it would let me pick. So I'm in Ag Power Systems third period. I would want to share the Ag Power Systems third period in Google Classroom. Then I can choose fifth period and it'll flip me over to fifth period and I share the fifth period. And then I can choose seventh period and flip over to seventh period. That's a neat feature that came up around Thanksgiving that keeps you from having to go out of that class and then go view fifth period to share. But you have to share third to third, fifth to fifth, seventh to seventh. If you go from third to fifth, your students won't be able to get to it. They're going to get an error message or they'll get something that says, we need you to create an account. And they already have one, and that's very confusing. Now, one thing that I found out this morning, Charles and Nora, with a teacher, was trying to use this first time. And in third period, or it wasn't maybe not the same periods, the video was visible. And then they went to jump to fifth period and share it, and it wouldn't do it. And then when we went into fifth period, it wasn't visible. They had to go in and make sure that was turned on. So you do have to make sure any component you want to share is visible to students. Due date and available date. So here's your scheduling right here on the Google, and then you hit the share button. And there is a great workshop. I think our best attended workshop is on learning management systems, and they're covering Google, Canvas, and Schoology. And if you miss it, go back and watch the video. So Google people, you have to come up here and open this up, the one that you want to share. Everybody else, whether it's Canvas or Schoology, when you share it, they're getting this drop down. Now, students will not see the link to the lesson plan or the grade report. They don't have the checkbox where they can hide the video, but they have their breadcrumbs. They can full screen right here. That's going to open in a new tab. They have the choice to resume or start over. They have the marking tools just like you do. They can view the outline. There's another that I can't see because some of my Zoom stuff is covering up, but there's another full screen in the lower left-hand corner if you want to enlarge it a second time. You have to close the tab to get out if you enlarge it. The one thing that's going to kind of be different for your students is they don't have these two tabs. And I don't know when this change happened, but it's just recently where it went from printable materials to instructional materials, which are your printables, and interactive are the things that they can do that our system grades. Theirs won't have the tabs. They'll just already be open, and they will be able to view anything that you haven't hidden that is a student material. The downloadable PowerPoint, you want to edit it, you have to download it and save it. The grading rubric, those are not student materials. You can't make them visible. You can't share them in Google Classroom. But these instruction sheets for the activities and projects, handouts, crosswords, word searches that we have, again, you see you can share those. Now, if I make it not visible, you can't share it. Because if it's not visible and they click that link, they're not seeing anything, because with Google, it is taking them into their student iCEV account, but it's only opening up that one component. If you need to give students the teacher notes, you will have to open this and download that PDF to share it to your students. And you know, you've got a few of those that in their IEP, they're supposed to get the teacher notes. The print assessments, you can never share those or the answer keys. You could project those or print them. You can download them to your computer if you want to share them, but all those are down here in the interactive. I don't know why, if you've got student licenses, you would use the printable when you can have this interactive and our system's going to do the grading for you. You can see the notes. Instead of one document, it's broken into 4. The vocab is the one thing that's different. I'm going to open it. In the printables or instructional materials, it's a handout. It is a click and drag matching. And I'm just going to, my OCD makes me want to make 100 on this stuff. So I have to look away while I'm just guessing. And I had this asked earlier from someone that I was talking to on the phone about student view. When you go in as the teacher and open this up, this is the exact view the students have. And I'm working it just like the students. And you can see it's auto saving up there for me. I hit finish. If we left any unattempted, it would let you know, and I could hit no, and it would show me which ones to go back to. I submit it. This is exactly the feedback the students get. I didn't get any right, 0 of 12. But it will show them the summary always. You can hide this details. See, because it's telling me right here, here's the answers I should have put. And you may want to hide that, and I'll get to those controls in just a moment. But if you want to see a student view where you're seeing it as the teacher, that's exactly what it looks like when the students do that, regardless if you're going through Schoology, Canvas, Google Classroom, logging in direct iCEV. Now, these assessments are little 5-question daily quizzes that reinforce the information covered in this first note taken in assessment 1. Second note taken, reinforced by assessment 2. Then you have a final, which will be minimum of 10. The longest I've seen is 25 questions. Controls, show them grade report. This is manual. If I uncheck that, it takes it away from Google Classroom. Sometimes teachers want, especially if they're logging in direct iCEV, want them to do all the student notes, but they're not worried about a grade on it. So they just don't have it showing grade report. If you're not doing Google, you can come in here and put a deactivate date. Now that doesn't transfer to Canvas or Schoology. Again, you are able to put those due dates in Canvas or Schoology and they work. Canvas and Schoology is a one-way integration. We talk to them, they don't talk to us. And so there are a few things that you don't see in Canvas or Schoology. Like I showed you those details, as the teacher, if I'm doing Google or I'm having my students log in to iCEV, I can go in the grade book. I can click a little icon, a little arrow beside that student grade, and I will see that work, just like I was showing you there, that details. You cannot see that if you're using Canvas or Schoology. So what I encourage teachers to do is to have the students, they get that. So once they submit it and they have that details and summary pop up, is have the student screenshot that and send it to you. Share with Google, we've already looked at that. Show details. That was where they get the correct answers that I just showed you. There is a main control that will uncheck it for every interactive for that whole class period. Visible to students. I take that away, you can't share it again because they can't get to it in Google. I do recommend you use the main control if you're going to uncheck any of these, and then use your manual check marks to check the ones you want the students to work on. Attempt threshold. This does work in Google. It does not work in Canvas or Schoology. And I know Canvas and Schoology have a way for you to put number of attempts in Canvas and Schoology. Since they don't talk to us, that doesn't work. If you need to give them a second attempt, you have to load that assignment a second time. Repeat that. Canvas and Schoology, you can't give them multiple tries. If they're going to have multiple tries, you have to go back and add that as an assignment a second time. If you make any changes to settings while your students are logged into iCEV, they're going to have to refresh. So if you gave them one try, and they all bombed it, you said, I'm going to give y'all a second attempt. I'm feeling charitable today. And you will go in here and you set this to 2. That will give them a second try. And they get a running total on their side. It will say you've used 0 of 2 attempts or 1 of 2 attempts. And they say, well, we can't get a second attempt. If they're logged in, any changes you make, they've got to refresh or log out and log back in for that to populate. So you add a lesson while they're logged in. They got to refresh for it to show up on their end. Okay. I think we've kind of covered all that. I'm going to go back out, use my breadcrumbs up here. Charles and Nora, for a long time when I would be with Dusty, I called those cookie crumbs. He always corrected me. I told him I like cookies better than I like bread. So when we come right here under students, manage roster. If you're ClassLink or Clever, yours is going to say view roster. And you'll have a sync button that everyone else doesn't have. So when your roster doesn't look right, if you go in there and you sync it, that should update it. And that's all done off of your state information. In Texas, we call it PEAMS. And when your campus person updates it, those ClassLink and Clever programs capture that, update it, send it to us, and we sync it. We have an auto sync, but sometimes it doesn't always auto sync, and that's why you have a sync button. But for those of you who do manual setup or you're doing Google Classroom, you'll see your roster. And I have a roster I'll show you in a moment that has a student in it. But you will see them listed alphabetically. You'll see their username, and you have a reset button for their password. So if they say, I can't log in, you can get them going very quickly by giving them their username and resetting their password. You have a move and remove feature. Again, with ClassLink and Clever, that's all done by that platform or program. You don't have to worry about any of that. So you don't manage a roster, you just view it. All of you will have a course grade report. I don't really recommend you go in there unless you just absolutely have to, because it's a very large document. You saw there was a student grade report in the lesson. I will go back to that as we get towards the end and look at some grades. That's just an easier document to go in to retrieve. Canvas and Schoology, no grades are going to show up in our grade book. If you're using us as an app or external tool, they will only show up in Canvas or Schoology grade book. If you're doing Google Classroom, it's going to show up in both places. Invite students, ClassLink and Clever accounts, you won't see that. They're all rostered through that platform. Manual setup, Google Classroom, you'll see invite students. I'm just going to open that real quick. Everything loaded on your dashboard has a unique code. It will tell you, this is my code for my 3rd period. They'll go to registration. Now, the one thing, if you're doing Google and you haven't already done this, you can give them that first assignment in Google Classroom, and when they click it, if they're not set up in iCEV, the very first thing it will do is to take them to this page. The appropriate registration code will be loaded. Their first and last name is they're set up in Google Classroom will be there, along with that correct email needed to sync them with iCEV and Google Classroom. They will need to do a username, password retrieve question, agree to terms, submit. So if you're doing Google Classroom and you haven't already set up students, the easiest way to do that is just to make that first assignment in Google Classroom. When they click it, first thing they'll do is go to this registration page. Okay. So Charles, are we getting any questions that need to be answered right now?
Most everybody that sent me said they were either using Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology, and you've pretty much been looking over, talking about that.
Good. So the CREATE assessment, since we're on that, Charles, the assessment generator, this is really probably for major exams, 6 weeks, semester test. I have some of my teachers that go in because their district requires a pre and post test. They use this for the pre and post test. I have a few teachers because this CREATE assessment lets you pick the lessons you want to pull, and it pulls any of the interactive pieces, the note taking, fill in the blank, the vocab matching, the assessment questions. Plus, we have 7 templates for you to design your own questions. Plus, there's a way for you to create your own templates. I have a couple of teachers that tell me, since we have blue and gold basics, but we don't have proprietary rights for any FFA manual materials. So I have some teachers that say, hey, the stuff I teach out of the manual, I've made me an assessment on iCEV, and the students go in there, even though none of the material comes from us, they create their own questions and the students go there to take that exam. It grades it for them. So I have a couple of them that are using it that way. I do want to point out, if you're Google, they're going to have to log in to iCEV. You cannot share a link to that exam you created. And it populates right down here at the bottom of the page. They'll have a deal that says course assessments, or maybe it just says assessments, and they would be able to get to it by clicking this link, as long as you've chosen visible to students. I always tell teachers, I'm unchecking that until I'm ready for them to test. And as soon as that class is over with, I'm unchecking it because I don't want them going back.
1041.
Okay. But Canvas and Schoology, if you're going always through Canvas and Schoology and you don't roster any students into iCEV, you're not able to do that. But I know with Canvas and Schoology, you are to be able to build your own assessments and put those in Canvas and Schoology, so that you are limited there.
Loyd, talking about Schoology, Heather says, I find that iCEV looks different in Schoology than with an external login to build a class. Is there a way to log in outside of Schoology?
Again, I'm not sure where you're at, Heather. You might tell us what state. You should have an account just like I'm looking at for you to log into. You can have student access both ways. Your school has to have purchased student accounts for you to be able to use us as an external app. Because we have to open up student accounts to Schoology or Canvas when we do that setup and give you that key and secret.
She said she's requested it through customer support. She's in Ohio.
Now, I'm not sure what, again, so you're only getting in as an external, we're an external to Schoology, and that's the only way you're able to access us? we might save that to the end and have you share your screen when we get off the recording, if you've got time, and we can look at your Schoology account. But you should have a manual account as well. And that's what I was saying. To me, it's a lot easier to go in as the teacher, open a lesson, do my planning, hop over to Schoology or Canvas, get into our picker page, and pull those pieces that I want to build in there. Now, I do have, let me just go back, because I said I'd show a video lesson and I didn't do it. I lied to y'all and I apologize. Here's a video. If you hit play right here, it's going to play the whole video. Come over here and choose a clip. It will play just the clip. But if I want the students, one thing that I can do in Schoology and Canvas, if I have students rostered for iCEV, and again, you can do it both ways. I have customers that have students rostered for iCEV, but they have them go always to Schoology. The iCEV is just a backup in case Schoology's not working. The teacher can say, hey, today I need you to go in and log directly in. I've opened this lesson up and do X assignment. Or the teacher wants to do a certification. They have to go directly to iCEV to work on a certification or to use that course assessment generator. But teachers can come here in iCEV and copy this lesson link. And then instead of choosing assignment, you're going to choose a page as a choice in Canvas. I'm pretty sure it's a page in Schoology as well. And you can paste that link in. When they click it, it directs them to the login page. They put in their login credentials and it takes them directly to this lesson. And on that page, you could put your instructions. And I have some of my customers that have been longtime users that have been forced to use Schoology or Canvas this year because their district wants them to use that because it records the attendance. And they want to make sure they get state funding here in Texas, that they've got that attendance documented. So they're saying, hey, we want everybody to go here. Well, if they log into Canvas, that records it. Then they jump to iCEV because the teacher feels much more comfortable using iCEV that way. But for a lot of my folks that hadn't used iCEV before, that are maybe more familiar with Canvas and Schoology, they prefer just to keep the kids logging in direct to Canvas or Schoology. So if you choose a page and you put the link in, you do have to roster the kids in iCEV. If you're just using this as that external app in Canvas or Schoology, they're already rostered into Canvas or Schoology for iCEV. You don't have to do anything else. Now, if your district has purchased you a teacher account, but not student licenses, then the only thing that you can do with Canvas and Schoology is actually download the PowerPoints and the instructional or printable materials. You cannot use the videos or the interactive. And then once you've downloaded them, saved them to your computer, then you can load them into Canvas or Schoology. I hope I've answered all that. So I know we're kind of getting close to time. So, I didn't hit the lesson plan. I always encourage you to go in the lesson plan for one reason. You don't have to follow it to a T, but it will say on day 1, slides 1 through 17, and here's the ancillary materials that reinforce that information. That is key. You don't want to drop down and pick something that reinforces the information for day 3 and use it on day 1. Again, you may not even want to do day 3. That's okay. But make sure if I'm using the first 17 slides, I'm using the pieces that reinforce the information that's covered. If not, it's going to be really confusing to your students. There's going to be days, I'm going to testify as a former ag teacher, where I rolled in at 2 in the morning from a stock show, and the next morning I was up there early, but I was not functioning on a high level. And I might just want to put the video and let the whole thing play. Y'all just sit there. I've got some stuff to catch up to. be quiet and watch the video and we'll talk about it tomorrow. That's rare. That's not a best practice. Or the principal stops you in the hall and says, I forgot to tell you, you got an ARD meeting next period and I don't have you a sub. So you may say, okay, we're going to the library and I'm going to put on this iCEV video for you to watch. Those things are understandable. You know, if you go through 100 and something slides in one class period, they're ready to put you on a rail and tire and feather you and run you out of town. The kids are. So again, you're not going to cover that much of that, but make sure you don't like use something that covers information that the kids haven't seen yet. All right. So go back to my courses real quick on the CDE stuff. I'm going to go into add new course. And I'm going to choose judging leadership playlist. Here's all the pre-made. That's not all the judging material that we have or CD material we have. That's pre-made. I'm going to pick this intro to horse judging. I'm going to fudge a little bit. So I'm going to copy the name. I'm going to paste it up here where it says course title. I'm going to add it. I'm going to go into certification playlist. Even if you don't want students to complete and earn a certification, if they're going to try out for my horse team, I'm going to make them work through this certification piece. If I got 8 kids trying out for 4 spots, this might be a way to kind of thin them down. Finished, and I've added both of those. If my students are already set up with an iCEV account, ClassLink, Clever, whatever, now in Canvas or Schoology, I can find both of these items and share those to the students. The only thing about a certification is the students cannot take the certification exam in Canvas or Schoology. So they still need to go to iCEV and work on those pieces. But if I'm just using them as a training tool and I'm not going to have the kids certify, you can access that in Canvas or Schoology through the picker page. So I would view this. I would go to invite students. Okay, my students that are trying out for horse team, y'all log into iCEV. You've got a green add a course / certification button. Click it, and it's got a place to type in this code. Codes are case sensitive. They put in the code. Boom, they've added that intro to horse judging piece. Okay, the second thing, and I know I'm moving kind of fast, I'm going to go back to add new course certification. Then I'm coming right here. I wish this was a little bigger. Well, this gets overlooked a lot. And I'm going to choose create a custom course. And I've actually built courses out. I'll show you one in a moment if I don't forget to do that. See, I have no lessons picked. I'm picking browse by subject. I'm finding this judging material. Since I'm working with an equine team, I'm finding horse judging, and I'm going to find me some practice halter. Now, I'm not going to use any of this stuff that says 2013, 16 national contest because that's in a pre-made list already. I'll just use that pre-made list. But these right here are not in any pre-made list. So I'm going to pick this halter 2-year-old geldings, no officials, with officials, mares with, and no. Two-year stallions with and no. And so you see they're added over here. I got to name it. I'm going to pick horse team as my name there. I've already created that a few times. And so I've got horse team. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go in, and my students trying out for horse team are going to get this. The other thing that I'm going to do that I didn't get around to showing, and we're kind of around time, is lesson visibility. Okay, I'm going to click show settings.
We got 8 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to pick, and I'm going to hide the ones that's got the officials. And I assign those classes for the students to work on. Then when they come to practice, I'll go over with them by showing them the class with the officials. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to questions, Charles, if you've got some, and if not, I'll go back and show a couple more pieces before we run out of time.
We pretty much, the only question that actually was about the one that you've already talked about with Schoology. So,
Okay. I'm
not
gonna
so far, we really don't have any other questions. So,
couple more pieces while we got time. I'm going in this because I know I have a student in here, and I'm going to go view because I know because it was me. And I'm going to come here to student grade report. And so you see the grades. I worked on 2 assignments and I didn't do very well. And I think I might have mentioned this. I have to look away when I do those things as a student because my OCD makes me want to make 100, and I got to study if it's something I don't know about. So we've got 5 report modes: first, last, average, high score, all scores. Google Classroom, it defaults to last score. That's what's going to show up in Google Classroom. So if you let them have multiple attempts, it's going to show you that last attempt. If you want to change this and make it average or pull the high score, it will roll that into Google Classroom, but you've got to come over to iCEV to do this. So I'm thinking, hey, while I'm here, I'm getting the grades while I'm there. I'm not going to do this and then I'm going to go back to Google Classroom to look at the grade. I'm looking at it right here. The only one that I don't think that will pass through is the all scores, because it will show every attempt with the time and date stamp. Now, I do have some people that are using this. Even if you give them 1 attempt, they're picking all scores. They're downloading this report, and that's documenting attendance because it shows the day and the time they did it. So we know they logged in on that day at that time. You can click this arrow right here to see their work. If you have to go to that ARD meeting and you need documentation of multiple attempts for a student, okay, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pick that individual student. I'm going to pick all scores and I'm going to hit filter. And I'm telling you, old Loyd probably needs some modifications for sure. And you're going to get a report that looks like this. And then I download it to Excel. And then I'm probably running a second report. Whatever went in the grade book. Okay, I'm giving you multiple attempts and I'm going to pull the high score. Then I'm going to filter that report and I'm going to download it, and I'm stapling those 2 together and taking them when I go to the ARD meeting.